he's undisputed once again. Canelo Alvarez versus William Scull has just wrapped up with Canelo's Saudi Arabia debut on Cinco de Mayo, a tune-up fight to claim the belts back, but this was kind of a more competitive fight than many assumed. A lot definitely did not enjoy this fight, to say the least, but regardless, Canelo gets the job done by a pretty thin margin, but regardless gets his hand raised. So we need to talk about Canelo versus Scull.
But before we get into that, we're Punch Talk and are bringing you guys daily combat sports videos. So if you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to help support the channel. So Canelo versus Scull was just a weird fight, to say the least. Coming into this, no one was really expecting Scull to do that much or have that much of a resistance, to be honest. And it was more just a tune-up and in-between fight between Canelo fighting Terence Crawford in that mega fight come September. And Canelo was supposed to make relative ease of Scull, not necessarily finish him, as Canelo has not been doing that for a while now, but pretty much just put a masterful performance and get him out the way. But that's not really what we saw in this fight. And I think opinions are very split for what people saw in there. A lot of people are hating on Scull and saying that he didn't come to fight, he was running. But honestly, I don't fully think that's what we saw in there. And I think the commentary and a lot of the noise during that fight was being very biased towards Canelo and being pretty disingenuous in general, because we saw the stats at the end of the day. William Scull landed around double of what Canelo did. Sure, Canelo did have the more powerful punches, especially to the body. He was making very good work, and that's what won him the fight. But all of this acting like Scull did nothing and was just dancing around the whole time just doesn't make any sense. He was definitely punching, he was throwing when he had to, and it's not like Skull's path to victory was to be stand in the pocket with Canelo, a power puncher, and just go blow for blow hoping he would win. That makes absolutely no sense. He came to outbox and use his ring craftsmanship. And overall, although Canelo I think did win the fight, I don't think he's getting the slack that maybe is deserved, to be honest, because he was really not throwing. Of course, you could attribute that to Scull not being in the fight and moving around quite a lot, but you would kind of expect Canelo to do a little bit more, maybe cut off the ring more. It seemed like he was very slow. Canelo is usually quite flat-footed, but especially in this fight, a lot of people think he has regressed because he is older. He's had a lot of fights in his career, but at no point was he really speeding up and really throwing a lot, trying to cut off the ring properly. So overall, a very weird fight with a lot of different opinions, but in general, I think the Scull hate is a little bit too much right now.
Yeah, for such a big underdog in William Scull, I mean, he said what he was going to do before this fight. He was going to look to make Canelo miss, make Canelo pay, which he did do a couple times with some clean uppercuts on the inside, some big right hands on the outside, and was very mobile, was pretty light on his feet the entire fight for 12 rounds, showed pretty decent cardio. Obviously didn't sit in the pocket and really trade and bang with Canelo, but he really wasn't expected to, so the criticism, like you said, I feel like is a bit unwarranted. But regardless, people just want to see everyone slug it out, especially coming off a lot of lackluster fights as of late with Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney putting on some of the most boring performances in the last weekend. Now this fight wasn't all too great, but it's not like it was really expected to be anything too special. If anything, it was looked at as Canelo just having a tune-up, getting that undisputed titles back just so he can make that Terence Crawford fight happen, which did end up being announced at the end of the day. At the end of the fight, Canelo and Crawford face off. It gets announced September 12th in Las Vegas. Canelo versus Terence Crawford is going down. That's confirmed now, so this was all really a build-up to that. It's not like Scull was the main objective at the end of the day. This is just a fight to stay busy for Canelo. He pretty much fights on Cinco de Mayo every year, this time in Saudi Arabia. But again, this performance from Canelo really wasn't a standout in a fight that is supposed to get everyone excited, get everyone interested in a potential Terence Crawford matchup, or not potential, confirmed Terence Crawford matchup at this point. It just wasn't the statement people are looking for, and like you said, a lot of people are criticizing Scull, but also Canelo wasn't really cutting off the ring. He wasn't putting on even the more damaging shots at times, besides maybe the last round where he really left a statement. Overall, just a pretty lackluster performance from Canelo as well, and we've seen time and time again him go the distance lately, so I feel like that maybe makes the Terence Crawford fight a little bit more competitive, because if Crawford could go the distance, he's a great mover, a great boxer, a great switch hitter, so that could definitely be a more competitive fight than Canelo just bullying everyone and knocking everyone out, because that's not really what he's been doing as of late. But like you said, the commentary, everyone was just glazing Canelo, and I feel like it really wasn't just down to William Scull that made this fight not that entertaining. It was also down to Canelo himself.
Yeah, it's not like we were just rooting for William Scull completely. We made a video saying this fight would not be close and Canelo would pretty much outclass him completely and maybe even stop him. But we just did not see that type of Canelo performance at all. And again, it really makes you question, how might this affect a possible Terence Crawford fight? We've seen, especially recently now with Canelo being older, him struggle against these lighter footed guys that put on the volume. And if Canelo's opponent isn't just more stationary and willing to exchange with him more, he faces a lot of adversity, like we saw with Dimitri Bivol as well. There's definitely things that Terence Crawford can do in the fight to increase his odds. Obviously, it's still a very tough one. Canelo is no walkover at all. Just because he didn't have too good of a performance here doesn't mean that it's gonna drastically affect that fight. We saw him walking down a lot, which is usually what we see in every Canelo fight. He's always walking down with a high guard and being that marauder type of style. And he's never been a volume type guy, but especially tonight we did see nice body work. But apart from that, there was no urgency to go for the head of William Scull, and Scull was making him miss a lot of the time throughout this fight, which made him look good as well. There was moments Scull was landing some very nice shots to the head, some uppercuts, and some different attacks when he would set his feet a bit more that were effective, and he was getting the better of Canelo in a lot of those exchanges, to be honest. But overall, it's kind of easier to hate on the guy that's moving more and a lot more on his bike around. And sure, I would agree that it was boring if Scull wasn't really doing anything, and it kind of seems like it might be a name thing as well. If this was a Devin Haney, a Shakur Stevenson, people might be easier to say that he put on a masterful performance because that's what people expect to see in the fight. And in this case, the more relatively unknown guy in Scull, and people being annoyed with him not wanting to fight against Canelo. But realistically, what did they expect his game plan to be?
Yeah, when you look at most of the success from Canelo, it was really just the left hook or the right hook to the body of William Scull on pretty much the exits. As Scull would circle out, Canelo would usually catch him a little bit, but just not much damage really done from either side. So obviously not the greatest fight, not the greatest performance from either guy. Even William Scull didn't have that great of a performance. Like, he could have had way more urgency, and I thought for his skill set, he could have actually thrown a lot more. If not, could have made a case for him to even have won the fight. But as the rounds went on, he never really turned it up. He never really put a stamp on this fight and made a case for him to beat one of the top guys right now in Canelo. So I could understand the frustration, but overall we know what this was meant to be. This was just a stepping stone for Canelo. It wasn't the biggest deal. It wasn't the biggest fight. Definitely not the most eyes on this fight. They were in Saudi Arabia at like 7 a.m. local time, I guess, to cater to the American and Mexican audiences. At the end of the day, we're getting the big fight that it's all been leading up to in Canelo versus Crawford at the end of the year. So that's really going to be the one to look out for. Not the greatest performance, not the most standout performance from Canelo, not the one that's going to stick in anyone's memory as a vintage Canelo performance, but regardless, he got the win. That's all he needed to do, and I guess on to the next one from here now. So let us know your thoughts in the comments down below on this fight and performance from Canelo Alvarez. And if you guys enjoyed and want to see more boxing, check out the harsh reality of Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez on screen now.